Hello dear students, I am Dr. Shibani Basu Dubey, Associate Professor, Department of English at the Bhopal School of Social Sciences. Today in this video, I am going to deal with John Donne's very famous poem, Death Be Not Proud. John Donne, as we all know, he is a metaphysical poet, and this particular sonnet, Death Be Not Proud, belongs to the category of his religious sonnets, also known as holy sonnets. Now, the objectives of this video, as you can see on the screen, it is that you will have a better understanding of this sonnet by the end of this lecture. You will understand the theme of the sonnet. You will understand the poetic techniques that have been employed in the poem. And you would also understand the context and the content of the poem, which are the very basic components to understand literature. So, we go on to the introduction of the poem, Death Be Not Proud. Now, it is a famous poem written by the metaphysical poet John Donne. It was written around 1610 and was published posthumously, that is after his death in 1633. It is the 10th sonnet in Donne's posthumously published Holy Sonnets. So this is a sonnet published in his compilation of poems entitled Holy Sonnets, and it forms the 10th sonnet out of the 19 compiled sonnets in this particular book. So I'll begin with the biographical details of John Donne's life. This is basically important because the incidents which happened in his personal life have had an impact on his writings as well. So his father died in 1576 when he was just 4 years old. So please keep in mind the deaths that he has himself witnessed in his personal life, which led him to write the poem, Death, Don't Be Proud of Yourself. His mom remarried Dr. Sims. Some of Donne's close relatives were martyrs, and one of them was Saint Thomas More, who was his mom's uncle. So I'm just wanting to draw your attention to this particular thing, that he had people belonging to religious field also in his family, and that is why he had this religious sonnet or the collection of religious sonnets which he published as Holy Sonnets. Two more of his sisters, Mary and Catherine, died when John Donne was born, between January 24th and June 19th. His religion was a recusant Roman Catholic, since practice of this religion was illegal in England. And John Donne fell in love with Anne More. They were married just before Christmas without the approval of her family. So these are the minor biographical details which you need to keep in mind once you do the sonnets. Alright. Now, as mentioned earlier, that Death Be Not Proud is the 10th sonnet out of the 19 sonnets forming the part of his Holy Sonnets. We don't know when John Donne's Holy Sonnets were written. We don't have an exact date of its publication. Many people think that Donne composed them after the death of his wife in 1617. Again, another death. I'm time and again trying to mention the deaths which he had witnessed in his personal life. They were published in 1633, 2 years after Donne's death, that is, his Holy Sonnets were published posthumously. Donne is commonly grouped among the metaphysical poets, and you will have a separate video on metaphysical poetry and metaphysical poets for a better understanding. So we move on. In this poem, Donne talks about the life's ultimate reality entitled Death. He addresses death, saying that there is no need for death to take pride in itself as an action. It remains an abstract noun only. And though some people have called it powerful and dangerous, it is neither powerful nor dangerous. So it is kind of assault, a kind of an allegation against death which John is putting forth or penning down in this particular sonnet. According to John Donne, picture of death is nothing but sleep and rest. So this description, we will do it more elaborately in our next slide, which is the poem itself. So we come to the poem. This is the entire poem, and we will do a line-wise analysis of this entire poem now. So look at the way John Donne begins the poem. What does he say? Death, be not proud. Though some have called thee mighty and dreadful, for thou art not so. So see, he is kind of commanding death in an imperative, forceful sentence. He begins the sentence in a tone of allegation that he is addressing death, not to be proud. Although he says, many people have called thee. Look at the word thee, which means you. And when we use such kind of archaic words, they are called obsolete English, which are not in use in English language anymore. But for poetic purpose, because it becomes more emphatic, it adds beauty to the poem, the writers do tend to use such archaic words. These words are called archaic words. So, though some have called thee mighty and dreadful, though some people have called you that you are very powerful, you are very terrific and dreadful, and people are scared of you, but ultimately the poet reiterates that thou art not so. Again, see the word thou. You are not so. So in this way, from the very beginning of the poem, we get a note that the writer is trying to demean death. He is trying to insult death, trying to prove that death is not at all mighty and dreadful. Here, I would like to bring another connotation. You know, the denotative and the connotative meaning. So the connotative meaning of this particular phrase, though some have called thee mighty and dreadful, you can consider it as Donne's satire against those people who do not have total, complete faith in religion. Because in the later section of the poem, you will understand that those who have faith and trust in religion, they won't be afraid of death. They won't find death to be fearful. So he is kind of satirizing death or satirizing people in these lines when he says, though some have called thee mighty and dreadful, but I feel, Donne feels that thou art not so, you are not so. For those whom thou thinkest thou dost overthrow, die not. And see the logical manner in which he progresses. He is putting forth the logic that for those whom thou thinkest thou dost overthrow. Please again keep in mind the archaic term. Thou thinkest, thou dost, you think, you does. You have overthrown those people by causing death, but they don't die. Poor death, nor yet canst thou kill me. And again he asserts his original belief that you can never kill me. So see how beautifully he says that if you think that you are overthrowing some people by causing death to them, no, death doesn't happen. They do not die. Nobody dies because ultimately soul remains immortal. And you are a poor death. Look at the spelling. This E final model. This is called archaic English again with an E final model. Stress on the alphabet or the sound E. Poor death, nor yet canst thou kill me. And he asserts that you cannot even kill me. From rest and sleep, which but thy pictures be. Now again, see, he is logically progressing or putting forth his arguments to his earlier statement that death, do not be proud of yourself. Alright? So what does he say? From rest and sleep, which but thy pictures be. Now he says, just imagine. It's a very pictorial description. Pictorial, where you can imagine what the writer is thinking about. So the writer here thinks that death is equivalent to rest and sleep. So this is a very stark imagery. Imagine a person's dead body lying. Can you make out that that person is dead? No. Prima facie, when you see that dead body for the first time, you will feel that the person is either resting or sleeping. So what does he say? That from rest and sleep, which but thy pictures be. So your imagination or your picturization. Now we will picturize death as a posture of rest or sleep. Much pleasure then from thee much more must flow. So what does he say? That death if we picturize it as equivalent to rest and sleep, and sleeping and resting both are much pleasurable activities, then just as we get pleasure from rest and sleep, similarly we should get much pleasure from death also. So rest and sleep two are pleasurable activities. Similarly, death is also a pleasurable activity, because when you identify death by picturizing it, you only see as if the person is either resting or sleeping. You do not know whether the person is dead or not. And soonest our best men with thee do go. And he says, I agree that many best people, many good human beings, you take them, soon take them with yourself. With thee, again, archaic word. You take them with yourself. But what do you take? Rest of their bones. You are only able to take this mortal body. You are not able to take their souls with you. This is again as per Christian belief, or as per Hindu belief also, that when death happens, it is only the death of the mortal body. That is the bones and the skin, it would die. But the soul, which is immortal, it would get a kind of deliverance. It would be free from the chains of this mortal bondage of human body. So how beautifully he portrays that I agree that you take many good people along with you, but the bottom line, but the truth of the matter remains that you are able to only take their bones and skin. The mortal attire you are able to take, but their soul you will never be able to take with yourself, because soul ultimately is delivered after death. So here we will have a look at the Christian belief that what happens, that death is only the death of the mortal body, and after death the soul is united with the God Almighty. The soul is eternal, whereas physical body is ephemeral. Physical body remains short-lived, but the soul remains without death. Soul can never be made dead. Death can never encroach on the soul of a person. It can only encroach the body of a person. So now in the poem you can identify a full point right here. Everywhere there were commas, there were short pauses, but the poem, the first stanza of the poem ends here. Alright, so with this first stanza, we end the video here, and in the second video, we will do the second part of the poem, or the second stanza of the poem, and we will enhance on the Christian and Hindu mythological beliefs regarding death, and how John Donne uses both the mythological beliefs in order to justify his poem. So when we meet with the second stanza of the poem, we will do it more elaborately, that how John Donne uses the Christian belief as well as Hindu religious belief in order to justify his poem that death is ultimately not at all powerful. It has nothing to be proud of. So we end the lecture here. Thank you.